call the October meeting of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District to order. We stand for
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call. Mr. Farrar.
Mr. Chairman. Mark Taylor.
Here.
Albert Hayes.
Here.
Jeffrey Rosenthal.
Here.
Ken DeWitt.
Here.
Robert Leslie.
Here.
Robert Colton.
Here.
John Hudson.
Here.
Stephanie Rizicki.
Here.
Mr. Perrone. Here. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We need a motion to revise the meeting agenda to allow for a executive session on personnel matters.
Where would you like that?
At the end of the meeting.
I'll make that motion, sir.
I'll second that. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have two guest speakers who want to address the board. The first one is Jim Fox from Stillwater. You're first?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you want to address? Yeah, let's move. Yeah.
Okay, yes, question about the level of the reservoir. According to what I have seen, the reservoir is now 4 feet below the 90-year average.
Just to clarify, sir, because I'm from Sacandaga, which reservoir?
Oh, still water.
Thank you. I assume, but I wanted our record to be.
Yeah, and I can understand. I've communicated with Mr. Colton, and the answer I got was that lack of rain, lack of inflow. However, just in the past week and a half, we've had a lot of rain. The reservoir continues to drop. And I'm wondering if there is if this is going to be usual for every year. Thinking about moving docks, boats in and out, that kind of thing, whether I should plan on different levels than has been the average of the past many years.
Okay. I will certainly call on our engineer to...
Sure, me to address that question?
Yes, of course.
Well,
He's our expert.
certainly it's not something we're targeting. And again, as you indicated in our conversation, it's entirely related to the fact that we had several months of well below average in this 14 to 16 to 18% historic average inflow. Months of July and August and September improved a little bit. But even with the rain that has fallen, we've only seen inflows to Stillwater Reservoir of between 250, 280 CFS. And this time of the year, typically when we get the fall rains, we might see those be 2, 3, 4 times higher than that. The inflow just has not been there to maintain the elevation, along with the needed releases, and the net result is the reservoir goes down more than historically has been the case. But in terms of the years to come, each year we try to target that historic average, that curve, which is the historic average, is our target. So in years when we have an excess amount of water and can meet the target elevations, we release more, or what is necessary to meet those target elevations. And next year it'll be a clean slate. We'll start all over again, assuming we get normal snowpack and normal runoff come March of next year into April and May. We would refill right back to 1678.3, start the year over again. And so if next year is a average year in terms of inflow, we should have no problem following that curve with the necessary releases following the historic average curve and elevations would be typical to what we see on average every year. So it's really influenced by the inflow.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, we still have to release.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? That was also part of the question.
There are requirements downstream maintaining about 1,000 CFS in Watertown is one of our objectives. Providing enough flow for the Beaver River, for the environmental requirements downstream at the various plants, supplementing the flow so that there aren't any environmental violations. Is another reason, and so.
I was wondering if the whitewater releases at Eagle Falls and Taylorville for whitewater kayaking, if that's just controlled by the power
By
plants,
Brookfield, yeah.
Brookfield, or whether that has.
Yeah, usually they work off of in this case over the summer, the 300 CFS release that we've been providing. They've been able to work off of that, I believe, and to satisfy their requirements for recreation. Yeah.
Sure. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
I'd just like to make a point that, I'm down into Great Secondogga Lake, and my docks are way out there, and I'm considering pulling them up farther this year, just, so the ice goes out. It's not only, the reservoir up here. I think we're all being affected by no rain.
So, and there's tons of rain down in Albany and Troy and the lower Hudson Valley, but not in the watershed. And it's been a problem all year. Peter, did you also want to address the group?
Well, yeah, Robert answered a couple of my questions, but just for the record, I want to restate them. You can answer me. I wondered if you coordinated at all with the Canal Corporation about feeding water down to the Barge Canal, because they take the water away at Forestport, and they also take North Lake and South Lake and feed Forestport, which is the headwaters of the Beaver River, which is the reason that they made the big reservoir here, is to augment those flows, or make up for what they take off. And I wondered if we coordinated at all with the Canal Corporation.
And we don't. There is no coordination of releases. We maintain our releases, as I just described, based on the needs in the Beaver River for environmental as well as recreation, and then also for the augmentation needs of the Black River in Watertown. So, while it does affect the Black River withdrawal by the Canal Corp out North and South Lake to feed for canal purposes, whatever the greater set of canal purposes, the only way that really impacts our operation is that eventually that whatever amount they're withdrawing at the headwater of the Black River eventually results in somewhat less water down in Watertown. So we use Watertown gauge as the litmus test for determining appropriate release of still water, and that's the only connection between our operation and the Canal Corp's operation.
And one other question then about, you never filled the reservoir. It never got full. You didn't use it. The rain didn't fill it.
Yeah.
Now last year we had like 6 inches of rain in June.
Mm-hmm.
This year we had like 2 inches.
Yeah.
Now you had about the same level, say the 1st of June or in May.
Yeah.
They didn't get the rain to fill it.
Right.
Now I think you could have filled it earlier if you could predict the weather, which nobody can.
Right. And that's the problem. You get to a certain point in the filling the reservoir, and then you need to reserve a certain amount in the event that you do get a 6-inch rainstorm. For a couple of different reasons. One, we don't want to have more inflow and volume than we have remaining in storage. Because if we achieve that high flow line elevation in the reservoir, then we have to make some other take some other actions with regard to releases. Some of those releases may be excess releases, and possibly on top of an already wet or high flow condition downstream. We're required by law, when we reach the high flow line, to essentially take all practical means to begin releasing and lowering the reservoir. And prudent and appropriate, judgment will hopefully balance the elevation of the reservoir with the potential for flooding downstream that could potentially result from the release of the water. And Beaver Lake folks know that, I guess, pretty well. There are times when if that buffer isn't sufficient enough to take on that 6 inches of rain that you get right at the beginning of summer or at the end of spring, then we're compelled to begin some significant releases, and so we're try to avoid that, try to refill it, and it's a.
I remember the one year in April, you have the boards, open all the gates, and really, tighten it up.
You don't. You do your best based on the forecast, but even the National Weather Service is only accurate to so many days in advance, and beyond 5 or 7 days, it's an unknown.
It's all computer controlled. They use 3 computer models.
Yeah, they do.
To make their best guess.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Now, as I say to everybody who has addressed the group, you certainly are welcome to stay for the whole meeting. If you're satisfied and you don't want to, we're not insulted. But you are welcome to stay. I don't feel that oh my God, I got to sit through some of this boring stuff. I want to jump back to the beginning of the meeting for a second. One of my board members suggested very properly, and I forgot, that in the Hudson River area we had a very tragic accident this week. And we thought it was appropriate to take just a quick moment of silence to remember all those people who lost their lives in our area this week. Well, thank you very much. I should have done that at the beginning of the meeting, and I forgot. I apologize. We're at number 6, approval of the September 13th regular board meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections? If not, a motion to accept.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Second.
Yes, sir. Second.
Mr. Hayes, Mr. Roden.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Report of the interim executive director, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report is on page 8. First of all, I'd like to thank Erin for a great job that she's done on the quarterly newsletter. I don't know if everybody's seen it yet or not, but really good job. She takes all the pictures, puts everything together. And I think the next one that comes out is also going to be very interesting with the pictures she took this trip here and with some of our other things. So, nice job. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
I have a new contact on the second floor, Jessica Scott. And I have passed several issues by her, and her response back to me has usually been within 24 hours. So, things are shaping up. She's been in contact with the appointments office and is getting some good feedback from them. And I think we may see a new board member by January. So,
We need one.
everything's pretty good down there. That's about it on my report. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for?
I just have one, and I apologize. I should have mentioned this before. And it's just coming to mind. I don't know if it's directed to you or to whom. The permit, the online permit system.
Oh, yes.
Where do we stand with that? The ability to pay your second dog of permits
We did have it.
online.
I meant to talk to you about that, and I didn't for the meeting. But
Okay.
we did discuss that in senior staff. And we feel that by people calling us and asking if there's a work permit is, we would rather have.
No, not the work permits.
He's talking
I'm
about
talking about
permits.
the dock, our beach permits.
Right, he's talking about the online, being able to use a credit card.
Right, to
pay
purchase,
off.
yeah.
Oh,
Where do we stand with
Well, I
that?
mean, we've had preliminary approval by the Office of the State Controller to use the EBTA system.
Okay.
I mean, the internal controls are extremely complicated because we have to follow
Mhm.
the state protocol. So I think really the only thing is to just initiate through our software, our network company, IMC, who did the online permit system, is for them to to load a module on there. Again, that's an additional cost. So, I mean, we have the tough things out of the way in terms of the state saying you could technically go ahead and do that. And the only thing that we would have to provide them once IMC would put a module on the website,
Okay.
the permit system, would be to make sure that we had all the internal control bells and whistles in place.
Is that a big deal?
It's fairly involved. It's some of the things they ask you for, we're not really equipped to do based on just the way we're staffed and the way we do our transactional processing. But, you know, short of, and actually for us to really move this forward to answer that question is to get that there's a OGS vendor who provides actually the transactional processing, the EBTA credit card transaction. They would actually have to come in and actually walk us through it. That's really the next logical step. So,
Can we do that so that permit apps go out in March?
it would be a stretch, but we could certainly initiate that target.
Why not?
And that,
Why not at worst choose a select group to get it up and running? So
right, I mean, again, once the app is there, anybody who wants to process their permit could do it. So it's not, I mean, there's no, the only test bed we would create would be prior to actually putting it live. So we would say, hey, we think everything's in order.
has our vendor, has our provider been made aware that?
IMC?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, they're working on it?
Well, they're not working on it because we'd need to provide them a spec and they'd have to respond. Is this module? It's not complicated. That part of it is just, we tell them to do it and they give us a price and we bring it to you, you approve it, it's okay to go. Unless it's something that is under a particular procurement threshold. And that, I wouldn't know that. My guess would be, it's possible it's not going to be that expensive. The thing that is more complicated is once they put that on there, then is to come up with the secured way for somebody to actually retrieve their permit off of the website, and only their permit, and then be able to pay that permit. Understood. And then the other thing is all your typical credit transaction activity, which is, I paid my permit, but I already had paid it. I mean, there's probably ways we can preclude that, but anywhere where there would need to be a credit process through the system, you have to have procedural workarounds around all of that. So, and again, the vendor can walk us through that.
Okay.
We're not going to, we just don't have the expertise to do that. The vendor would actually have to walk us through all those bells and whistles.
I think.
So I can report back, I can report in December.
Okay.
That IMC has loaded a module and.
How about November?
Excuse me, in November. With the hopes that by December, we would have the vendor in, who would then be able to look at that module on our website and make sure that we have all the bells and whistles in place.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I interrupted because I didn't know who I'm supposed to address that to.
That's all right.
Any other questions for John?
I can finish answering the question, well, not the question, but what I was getting to.
Did I have a question in there somewhere?
The question you thought you were asking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the last meeting, you asked
Oh, yeah, that's part B, yeah.
Yes. We did discuss it. We do like the phone calls that do come in because we have a better way of checking to see what the permit consists of. So if somebody calls or looks on the website, for instance, and say, well, he's got permission to cut trees. Well, okay, but we'd like to know when the work's going on, he might have permission to cut trees, but he could be cutting trees that ain't supposed to be cut. So I think we have a better line of defense, if you will, by us receiving that phone call.
Yeah, but I don't think
Because we're a complaint-driven system,
yeah.
if we preclude some of those phone calls, we're not going to get the complaints or the information we need in order to be able to investigate when somebody is operating either without a permit or outside the scope of their permit.
I don't think that's what you were asking.
But we get what he was asking would have value.
I see what he's saying.
But the flip side of it is that there's a cost to having that access.
Right, I think what you're suggesting is you have it online, I go see Rob Leslie has a permit to cut trees, I don't make that phone call.
Exactly. And we want you to make
That's
that phone
the
call.
concern.
And we didn't, until the, senior staff got together and really started to hash out how we would do it.
I thought you might want to do that so John wouldn't get my phone calls on his private cell phone on a Sunday afternoon when I hear someone cutting trees.
We did discuss that and we realized that those calls were coming in.
Touche.
But the same thing, right, if someone has a permit to do erosion work down in the community.
Right.
How do they know if that area where they're working is?
Right.
750 yards.
I think the sense of what we were asking is not that they would get a permit that way.
No.
Once you gave them a permit, we just listed it so that you're not making the phone calls, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
And therein lies the problem.
Right.
Because the first line of defense, as it were, for me, as a board member, being vigilant about this, I'll go to the website and I'll say, oh, he's got a permit. I don't need to call. When in fact, if it's not up there, I call, then they investigate, does he have the permit, he or she have the permit, and secondly, is the work being performed within the scope of the, and that's probably even more critical.
Right. Yeah. That's the assessment that we don't want the general public making. We want our field staff making. And we don't have enough field staff to investigate everything without people bringing their concerns to us. They're the eyes and ears.
Understood.
Okay.
Good point.
Any other questions?
Will you unblock my phone number now?
Okay. Contracts. Resolution to extend contract C-022-012 HDR Stillwater Beach Analysis. Mr. Polk?
What happened to Schnabel? Has that moved over?
Schnabel, although on the agenda for this month, is actually intended to be a presentation at next month.
That's what I thought.
We'll note that in the minutes.
That's because you haven't amended
Get the updated one. Yeah, anyway, this is just a resolution to extend the contract, the continuing work. The contract that we previously had expires at the end of this year, and we just need to extend the contract out to match the anticipated duration of the work, which is at least another year or so.
Motion to extend the contract. There's no financial consideration on this?
There's no change. It's just a change in date of the termination date of the contract.
Scope and
Everything, scope and fees remain as they have been previously stated.
Okay. Motion to extend the contract.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Mr. Hayes.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Wood.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Staff and committee reports. General Counsel, Mr. Leslie.
My report is on page 12. Marshall and McDonald bill is still yet to be delivered to the governor. We're still waiting for some information from Kleinschmidt regarding permitting at Hawkinsville. I also offered the acting executive director and board chair advice and counsel on personnel issues. The counsel hired by the regulating district's insurance carrier believes that the regulating district faces no liability with regard to the recent notice of claim concerning that firefighter in Watertown. So they have closed their file. So we don't expect to get sued. And that is my report. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Leslie?
Thank you. Bless you.
Compliance officer, Ms.
Thank you. My report can be found on page 13. I attended the annual MWBE forum at the Empire State Plaza. All required MWBE, EFC, SCBOB reports were submitted. And please review the contract status sheets on pages 14 and 15 as they satisfy the Public Authority Law, Section 2839 requirement. I had previously mentioned the governor's creation of ADAPT, Agency Deputy for Administration Policy Team. The goal is to promote diversity, inclusion, merit, and fitness in the workforce and to make the state competitive with the private sector. One of the goals is to develop telecommuting programs throughout state agencies and authorities. So I'm currently working with Department of Labor and other agencies. They did a pilot program, and it was very productive, and they were able to save staff time, money, increase productivity, and they're looking for state agencies to participate in this telecommuting program. So as I gather more information and attend these meetings, I will work with the executive director and senior staff to see if there's any application at the district for such a program. That completes my report.
Very good. Any questions, comments? Thank you very much. Chief Fiscal Officer, Mr. Ferrara.
Mr. Chairman, my report can be found on pages 16 to 38. Again, I focus on the district fiscal office highlights. An update on the independent audit. They continue to work on the statements. There's a couple of things that happened this year, primarily having to do with the EFC note bond issuance to take care of some of the Conkeyville work that is still underway. I still expect a draft. I mean, we could have a draft by the end of the week. They haven't asked for any additional information, so I'd be surprised if we didn't get a draft by Monday. I'm not overly concerned about the September 30th deadline for that report. The issue with that report is that it's required to load all the other reports that are already completed. So if you don't have your independent audit, you can't load your procurement, investment, anything else, the annual report. They're aware of that, and again, we've never, quote, been dinged for this, but we may, I think one time we actually didn't receive the report until late November, so again, I'm pushing and prodding as best I can. On the monthly forecast and cash flow reports, again, they're attached to the board's review. We did receive the assessment from Saratoga County for $1,035,809. We did receive a couple of small county assessments on the Black River side for Hamilton and Oneida. Both of those total $2,639. On the current period significant disbursements in the Hudson River area, we processed and dispersed all of the statutory school taxes. Those go to primarily Fulton and Saratoga County schools, and we brought all of them, Perth, Edinburgh, Cadbury, Luzerne, Mayfield, and Northville, and that was in the amount of $1,821,941, leaving the property taxes due in January, which will be $1,001,002, and that'll be our $3 million tax payment for the year. That's my report. If the board has any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Chief Engineer, Mr. Fulton.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My report starts on page 39. As typically presented, it's a portion of the month previous to the board meeting. This one ran through the 24th. we did receive some additional rain at the end of the month of September. We actually had some improvement over the numbers that are reflected totaled through the 24th. However, at our largest reservoirs, Great Sacandaga Lake, we had precip in September 141% of average, actually, by the end of the month. And then at Stillwater, precip of 95% historic average. So that helped us out a little bit. Inflow to Stillwater Reservoir came up to about 31% of average in September. And as I mentioned previously, that's compared to 2 consecutive months of an average of about 16% of historic average inflow. And our smaller reservoirs, Old Forge and Sixth Lake, we are actually just about to begin the drawdown, both of those. It will, as it has for many years now, begin and coincide with the Moose River Festival that they have, and so the additional water that we release to begin the drawdown significantly benefits them, certainly this time of the year when flows are low, to help them facilitate that rafting event in the Moose River. And those reservoirs are currently right on target. And Indian Lake, jumping back to the Hudson River area, received some additional inflow, and it's fairly close to our target, within only a few inches of our target now. So that reservoir is pretty well situated also. So we have to take any questions. Yeah.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Finally, Hudson River, Black River Administrator, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report starts at page 69. Staff attended a confined space training at Tompkinsville Dam. Probably Ken is probably the only one who hasn't seen that yet, but when you go down to the pit area at Tompkinsville, you haven't seen it.
I haven't been.
So there's a harness that you have to wear, hooked up to a steel ladder, and you hook into this thing so you're going down 50 foot. If you fall or slip or whatever, this mechanism stops you, prevents the fall from going through. So,
No, it doesn't stop you, or no, you're not trying.
I'm not
So this is confined space
Should be able to see it.
Okay.
because of the access. So working with the engineering staff, we come up with a scaffolding / stairway setup that's going to be installed. We're going to purchase to actually walk down the stairway into the pit area now, which will lessen the confined space requirements. It will have less staff on site when we do a valve operation, so I won't have to have 5 people there. And it'll make it a lot safer going in there. And so it works out a lot better for everybody.
I don't know if you've seen that.
So I would like to invite the board to come up sometime. And once we have it installed, we can take a walk down in there, because it is pretty interesting.
I just thought you
I am interested.
It would be great
if we had that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
So that
that.
concludes my report.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
I apologize. Yeah, about halfway down those steps, you realize, wait a minute, I got to come back up them.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Wow. Any questions for them? Thank you very much. Board member questions, and boy, we're right through this.
Yes. I just have one comment, both to our executive director and to our engineer. I want to thank both of them for arranging the tour of the Stillwater Reservoir, which we don't have an opportunity to do from the Hudson River side unless it's done for us. And Mr. Fultan truly educational when we went to the Stillwater Dam itself, and explanations of how it works and what goes on. Keeping my hands off of the important valves and tools, that was critical. I think it's important that people understand. I think it's important that the board is informed because of our staff keeping us informed. Makes our job easier. Thank you.
If you change your mind, and like a little training session, and the next time we need to open the gates, we could probably arrange that too.
I'm sure that could be arranged, and you put some handcuffs at the same time. No, it really was extraordinarily
Good.
informative, really educational.
Next board meeting is 11/13 in Boston Spa. I'd like a motion to, we need a resolution to approve that site and time.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. DeWitt.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I need a resolution to go into executive session.
I'd like to make that
I
resolution.
to go for personnel issues, and I don't suspect we have any votes coming out of executive session.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Where are we, Boston?